Rudy Cashman, neurosurgeon for Indiana for 40 years, but I'm only 39 years old. I'd like to speak to you a little bit today about proper eating. Not really dieting. I'm not for diets, but I'm proper eating. Being a neurosurgeon, I treat a great deal of vascular disease, patients with strokes. I've seen many patients with heart attacks, with diabetes. Probably 2 out of 3 patients that I see in my office, I personally think, they need a coach. They need a coach. They don't need me to do anything fancy. So I took a great interest in the mind and the body. I've developed a mind-body index to my left and your right. Diseases caused by the mind, totally or partially. Then I took a great interest in the diet. I have a book coming out shortly, within a few weeks actually, called The Secret of the Non-Diet. In other words, not dieting, it's about eating the correct food. Within 3 months, I'll have one coming out for children. Here's the cover on the adult book. It has a painting on the cover done by me, Shem, an artist, in an art gallery that I own. And I will have one coming out for children shortly also. So let's get on this road to learning something about the proper foods to eat. This is really what I'm talking about. I'm not going to be talking about portion control. I don't want you to count calories. I don't want you to drink anything funny. It'll be nothing like that at all. It's proper food selection, and you eat till you're full. You can frankly eat all you want, because the food itself will stop you from overeating. So let's start out on this journey. Let's have a little bit of fun here. What are the markers of heart disease? Let's go over these one at a time. Inflammation. It used to be thinking that your elevated cholesterol, high cholesterol, was the best marker of heart disease. Actually, it turns out now it's turning out to be inflammation. Inflammation is measured by CRP in your blood, and you can from that see how high your inflammatory factors are. Fat has a lot of inflammatory factors in it, and we'll be discussing that in more detail. Another marker for heart disease is cholesterol, your cholesterol level. The best cholesterol level, frankly, is 150. The Framingham Heart Study proved, 50 years the study's been going on, if your cholesterol was under 150, you never had a heart attack. Isn't this an unbelievable figure? Yet, I see physicians sometimes accept, 180 to 200 is okay. Don't accept it. Aim for 150. If you did that, you'll never have a heart attack or a stroke. Thirdly, obesity. This is certainly a marker of heart disease. People that are overweight have a body mass index, which is based on your height and your weight. You should know what your body mass index is. It should be 25 or so. If you're 30, you're overweight. 35, you're obese. And if it's 40, you're morbidly obese. You need to know what that is. Why is obesity so important? Because fat produces inflammatory factors that cause heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's disease, arthritis. So obesity certainly is a marker of heart disease. Diabetes. This is a marker of heart disease, because diabetes results in insulin resistance, and insulin resistance produces plaques in the arteries. You close off the arteries and have a heart attack. Diabetics have a much higher rate of vascular disease, strokes. You all know that. They get their extremities amputated, their renal arteries shut down, they need to be dialyzed, they go blind because the arteries develop cholesterol in them. So diabetes is a big marker of heart disease. High blood pressure, we all know, leads to heart disease, because the pressure in the arteries produces narrowing of the arteries, growth of the tissues in the arteries, and they narrow the arteries to the brain as well as to the heart and to the kidneys. So hypertension is a big marker. Blood clotting. If your blood clots too easily, then you're more likely to close an artery off. And that's the reason you see people taking aspirin and Plavix all the time. Syndrome X. This is a fairly new syndrome called Raven syndrome, Syndrome X. And this is a syndrome of hypertension, diabetes, insulin resistance, and high triglycerides. About 40 million people in this country have Syndrome X. Very significant number of children have Syndrome X. And this leads to vascular disease, strokes, much higher rate of cancer, Alzheimer's disease, arthritis. So it's very important. Many people with syndrome X don't even know it. So it's very important that you know what your triglycerides are, what your blood pressure is. Sloth, no exercise. People who don't exercise are much more likely to be overweight, to develop strokes and heart disease. I'd say weight loss is related to at least 30% about how much you exercise, at least. Stress leads to heart disease very commonly. The patients with this, the steroids are up in their blood, they develop hypertension, vascular disease, and the stressful life much more likely to result in a heart attack. Spirituality and love of the family. What does that have to do with healing? Very important. It's my experience. For example, if you see a patient with a stroke or heart attack and they're a very loving family, they do a lot better. How's that? It affects their immunity. It affects their immunity. Their own ability to heal become hopeful. Extremely important in healing and wellness. Let's look at this cholesterol and the cardiovascular disease incident. The U.S. population leads the world in heart attacks. We lead the world. The world. Would you believe it? It's because of our diet, of the food we eat. The countries that have a mainly vegetarian diet, the Asians, for example, parts of China, they almost have no heart disease. They have very little cancer. They have almost no diabetes. So this is very important. So let's look at this graph a minute. And it shows that the U.S. the average cholesterol level runs around 250. Finland is a little bit higher than us because they eat fish 7 days a week. Fish is most of the time about 40% fat, frankly. So fish 7 days a week isn't that good. And they put a lot of butter on the bread. I mean, just gobs of butter. So they're a little bit higher than us, but the U.S. otherwise leads the world in the level of their cholesterol. And secondarily, the heart disease, the diabetes, and the incidence of stroke. Let's look at dietary fat in the cholesterol level. If you look at the bottom of the graph, in the U.S., most of us are eating a 40% fat diet. I mean, unbelievable. I mean, if you want no heart disease or strokes, you got to be eating 15, 20%. We eat a 40% diet. But let's look at the Japanese in a minute. 15 years ago, the Japanese ate a very low-fat diet, but they're also changing. And then let's look at this, the migrant study in Japanese. The Japanese were eating 15 years ago a 10% fat diet. Then they moved to Hawaii, and look at their death rates at age 60. They moved to Hawaii, they're starting to eat a 25% fat diet, and look at the death rate pick up. Their strokes, their vascular disease, their cancer, their inflammatory diseases pick up. And then they moved to LA, and now they're eating a 40% American diet, and the death rates, you can see, doubling and tripling. So this really is proof of eating a vegetarian diet or a low-fat diet versus a high-fat American diet. Most Americans eat around 40%. I mean, if you had a heart attack or a stroke, for Pete's sake, you got to get it down to 10, 15% if you want to live. The secret of the Nun diet is a diet that I have designed based on reading at least 100 dietary books. Many of them I read 5 or 10 times. So I got to learn a lot about it. And the reason I did that because I'm seeing so many patients with these problems, and ICE has nothing I can do with a lot of them. You can't operate on them. Most of them need a change of diet. It's like patients coming in with a heart attack. I mean, they're ready with instruments, do an angioplasty, do a heart operation, but is anybody pushing the diet at them? I think this is very important. I have Max Honeywell, a patient of mine, as a friend at the lake, and he needed a new heart, and he didn't want the operation, so I convinced him to adapt a vegetarian-type diet, and sure enough, 15 years later, Max Honeywell of Marion, Indiana, is alive at age 76, building houses. So diets indeed do work. So do medical procedures, but I'm saying a diet is a very important part of it. So let me design the secret of the Nun diet here. It's complex carbohydrates. What is a complex carb? Baked potato, sweet potato, corn, vegetables, carrots. They have complex carbs. They are complex sugars. They're very healthy. Why are they healthy? They have fiber in them. Fiber paints your gut and keeps you from absorbing everything that you're eating. It doesn't absorb as much cholesterol. You don't absorb as much fat. For example, if you eat a baked potato with complex, which is a complex carb, you will at best 40% of those calories will be eliminated in metabolism. Only 60% will hit your bloodstream. But you eat 100 calories of fat, 97% will sit on your abdomen and your buttocks by the next day. Only 3% use in metabolism. You see the difference? That's the point. Whole grain, black bread, pumpernickel bread, brown bread, and you have to be careful that the label is correct, but whole grain products are much healthier because they have the nutrients in them. Legumes, beans, eat all kind of beans, all you want. Become an expert in beans. Very healthy, have a lot of protein, don't have much sugar in them, and do have some complex carbs in them, and very healthy. Vegetables, all you can eat. Vegetables should be the main meal of the day. Put a sign on your refrigerator. Vegetables, the main dish. And stress reduction is important too. Stress has tremendous effects on our lives and our diets and our illnesses. I mean, Christopher Reeve dies and his wife dies of lung cancer within a year. She never even smoked. What happened? The stress of the situation destroyed her immunity, and cancer attacked. So it is with eating. Arteries are much more likely to get inflamed if we have a lot of steroids in our blood from stress. Psychological control is very important. We'll talk about psychology of eating shortly. Decrease your sugar addiction, and we'll speak about that also. But increase the fiber in your diet. The biggest thing you can do to drop your cholesterol, eat a lot of fiber. Eat fibrous foods, complex carbs, take a fiber supplement. Also, I think something to consider. Take a multivitamin every day and take omega-3, and we're going to talk about the value of omega-3 shortly. I really have 4 different types of way eating, not diet, way of eating. Diet really means way of eating. And we're going to talk about 4 different ways of eating, depending, I think, on what your situation is. For example, are you very obese? Have you had a whole bunch of heart attacks? You should know what your blood studies are. You get to know your cholesterol, your HDL, your LDL, your triglycerides. You got to know what they are. They got to be in your wallet on a card. Many people don't know what they are. Very important. And I'll tell you why it's important. You know what the first symptom of heart disease in 50% of the people is that are going to get heart disease? You know what the first symptom is? Angina? Arm pain? A headache? Dizziness? No. It's death. It's death. The people just grab the chest and drop over. That's the reason you got to know your figures now. To grab your chest at age 50 does you no good when you're ready to heart attack. But you want to know what your figures are even as a teenager. I'm writing a book on children and obesity, and believe me, you got to know what it is as a teenager. Half the teenagers have elevated cholesterols. Heart disease starts at age 4. That's the reason you got to know your figures. So what's a vegetarian? A person that does not eat meat. Eat fish, fowl, or products made thereof, okay? Does not eat meat, fish, fowl, or products made thereof. That's a vegetarian. A very healthy diet. You might say, geez, you don't get all the protein you need to have a growing child, for example. That's wrong. Vegetables are full of protein. The American Dietetic Association, the Canadian Dietetic Association came out with a study. If you eat a proper balanced vegetarian diet, you don't have to worry about protein. If you don't want heart disease, strokes, reduced rate of cancer, reduced inflammatory disease in your life, and you want to live to be 100, be a vegetarian. Now, I'll tell you why. Seventh-day Adventists are vegetarians by religion. Of them that follow that, they live 10 years longer than we do. Yes, it's if you want a long life, be a vegetarian. It's very, very healthy. What's a vegan? A vegan really is a vegetarian plus. A vegan doesn't eat cheese products. Let's face it, cheese is 80% fat. You're going to have an elevated cholesterol. You're going to gain weight if you eat a lot of cheeses. They have vegetarian cheeses. You just got to eat some cheese. But a vegan is a person who does not eat meat, fish, fowl, dairy, or products made thereof. Doesn't eat anything with a mother or a face. Okay, a little humor here. And what's a flexitarian? It's sort of a term I invented. It's a combination of vegan, vegetarian, some meat, and some dairy. Okay, I'm sort of a flexitarian. I'm 80% vegan, but I do eat a fish maybe once or twice a week. I may have chicken occasionally. Chicken's 40% fat. If you think chicken's a health food, forget it. It's not a health food. But white turkey, I might have that now and then. That has very little fat in it. So that'd be a flexitarian. Now, a fourth one here I think is very interesting, based on the works of Joel Fuhrman, a nutritarian. What's a nutritarian? Well, he's sort of a pretty serious vegan flexitarian. In other words, he's a vegan who does eat some meat products, maybe every day, but they're very lean, it's very little, it's not a big part of the diet. But that person eats highly nutrient-dense foods. What's a highly nutrient-dense foods? Those are foods that have not been stripped through processing of their nutrients. There are about 10, 20,000 phytochemicals in vegetables and in fruit and in peppers and in carrots. And these have very little caloric density. So these are high nutrient-dense foods versus high caloric dense foods. A French fry is a highly caloric dense food, while eating a pepper is a highly nutrient dense food. So a vegetarian, a bean, fruit type diet is a Nutrient type diet, extremely healthy. You want to live to be 100, follow a vegan or a nutritarian diet, vegetarian diet. I mean, these really work. It's been proven. It's in the literature. It's all over the place. The work of Dean Ornish, Pritikin, Esselstyn, Joel Fuhrman, wonderful books to read. They're on my website. They all prove that point. My book coming out summarizes them all. You read my book, it'll summarize them. So nutritarian is a person who eats little meat or cheese, but eats highly nutrient-dense foods, vegetables, legumes, fruit, okay? The sad, mad, toxic American diet. The standard American diet is high beef, high cheese, high trans fats, leads to heart attacks at a young age, strokes at a young age, diabetes, and much earlier death than it need to be. Also more Alzheimer's disease, more inflammatory disease, arthritis. So the standard American diet is a murderous American diet. I also call it the toxic diet. We lead the world. We're the worst diet in this living world. The China study really proved it. A book by Colin Campbell. They studied 1 billion people in China, under communism actually, that looked at all the different towns and the different diets. And they found the vegetarians have very little cancer, very little heart disease, very little strokes, very little arthritis, while some of the major cities where they're starting to eat a fatty Chinese diet, they started seeing breast cancer, colon cancer, prostate cancer, strokes, heart attacks at a young age. It was all based on the diet. The Pima Indians in Mexico have no vascular disease. The Pima Indians in Arizona who eat the sad American diet, 90% diabetic rate. Would you believe it? Strokes, heart attacks at a young age. Their children who live in LA, same darn thing. So what is the mad diet? Eating meat products. High cholesterol. I myself don't eat only fish. That's the only meat that I eat. I don't eat beef at all, frankly. And when you think, if you have trouble stopping that, think of the torture an animal has to go through to put it on your plate. I mean, if you ever read a book about that, that alone turned me off from eating meat products. Dairy products, high fat. Cheeses, very high fat. They have vegetarian cheeses. You can find them. I found those. And trans fats are very bad. They are full of cholesterol, full of inflammatory factors, and there are a lot of those out in French fries, cookies, donuts. You don't want nothing to do with trans fats. Refined foods. That's food stripped of the fiber. Their chemicals have been removed, and now it's white bread, and now it's white rice. Let's frankly, what's white bread? It's candy. White bread's candy. It's like giving somebody candy. And you want complex foods, complex carbs, not refined food. Food, what is it? It's a drug. Food's a drug. Like alcohol, like nicotine. Yes, we lead our psychology with food. We're going to talk about that a little bit. What is it causes the brain to secrete? The hypothalamus is a metabolic center of your brain. If you look on my right to your left, I'm going to point out with my pointer here, with my red pointer right here, this is the hypothalamus right there, which through its stalk affects the pituitary gland. But that's the metabolic center of the brain. That regulates metabolism of your food. Heat and temperature is regulated from there. A lot of your stress hormones originate there. A lot of neuropeptides secreted in your body originate from there. And I will discuss that a little bit. But food affects the hypothalamus, and it releases serotonin, which has a calming effect, but also shuts off your appetite. And I'll explain that to you shortly. Dopamine is another drug that comes from the hypothalamic area, and endorphins. Actually, endorphins can stimulate the appetite. People who are very obese have a high level of endorphins, and they just cannot stop eating. So food regulates your psychology a great deal. We use food to relieve stress, for example. What regulates the appetite? Actually, there's a CARP center called the cocaine amphetamine retention place, actually. The CARP center in the hypothalamus turns your appetite off, the CARP center. And the CARP center is affected by the leptin in your blood, by the ghrelin in your blood, and by your psychology, the amount of steroids in your blood. The NPY center in the hypothalamus, the neuropeptide place, increases your appetite. So if you're starving, then this center turns on and stimulates you to eat more through hormones. Ghrelin, what's ghrelin? Ghrelin is made in the stomach. That's the reason years ago they used to cut the stomach in half because it's an appetite stimulant. Ghrelin affects the CARP center of the brain and the NPY center of the brain and increases or decreases your appetite. So when you cut the stomach in half the ghrelin is gone and your appetite goes down. It's not just the volume that the stomach has less volume, very interesting. Leptin is made by fat and tells your brain you're full. So when the leptin level goes up and your fat in your body goes up and your blood goes up, it affects the cocaine center of your hypothalamus and your appetite gets turned down. Fat cells create leptin. They create leptin. The CCK, the cholecystokinin secreted by the gallbladder, is interesting because it decreases the appetite, and that's the reason I suggest a lot of times eat a little bit of a nut bar, maybe no more than 75 or 100 calories, not 250 calories, an hour before dinner. You'll find it turns your appetite down. You eat a lot less. I do that all the time. It's a very effective thing. You're going to eat a lot less. Let's talk about physiology and metabolism for a minute. The basic metabolic rate determines a great deal about how your calories are burned. Very important to have a high metabolic rate. How do you turn it on? Exercise turns it on. What you eat turns it on. Omega-3 turn it on. Our metabolic rate is totally different among many of us. Some have a high, some have a low rate, but let's look at this. It burns 50 to 6% of your daily calories. So if you're taking in 5,000 calories, it might burn 2,500 of them if you have a high metabolic rate. So what your metabolic rate is extremely important based on exercise, based on what you're eating. Certain types of food increase your metabolic rate. Certain types of food decrease it. Like taking omega-3 after 4 months, the thinking probably burns about 400 extra calories a day. I'm not sure it's as high as that, but I've read that. I mean, it's a tremendous amount of calories that get burned by your metabolic rate. Your PAL, your personal activity levels, how active you are, yields about 20% of your daily calories. Your couch potato, you may down at 5%. You're a very active person. Your PAL activity is very high, like at the hospital. I walk, my Lutheran hospital, it's so long, it's a mile long almost. My office is at the other end, so I do a great deal of walking. So you can see without my playing tennis at night, you can see that my personal activity level is quite high. And that burns a lot of calories right there. The thermic effect of feeding TEF burns another 20 to 30 calories. The thermic effect depends on the type of food you're eating, and also if you don't eat after 7 p.m., the thermic effect and metabolism in your body is quite high all night long, and it'll eat up a lot of calories. So eating after 7 p.m. is not a good idea. So you can see the total of this determine your physiology and metabolism. So it's your exercise rate, it's your activity level, and when you're eating and what you're eating affects the amount of calories that your body is burning without you even having to exercise. I figure exercise is a good third of the calories you use up in your activity level, so it becomes very important. What are macronutrients? You hear them. Those are the carbohydrates we talked about. Those are complex sugars. Carbohydrates, a lot of sugar chains, and protein. What's the interesting thing about carbohydrates? Remember what I said. You eat a complex carb, a baked potato or jam or corn, you're going to use up 40% of the calories in metabolism in the gut itself because it has fiber. That's the critical difference between carbohydrates and fat. 100 calories of fat and 97% enters your body. 3% use up in metabolism. So you see, if you eat a fatty diet, you're not losing much. So to know the difference between metabolism of fat and carbs is very important. Protein, of course, is made of amino acids, the building blocks of your body, the muscles. It makes your hormones. And again, I mentioned again, if you eat a balanced vegetarian diet, you do not need to eat meat to have protein. There are plenty of athletes like Lewis or the Dallas Cowboys. They're vegetarians in season. They're vegetarians. So you do not, to take protein supplements is not necessary. I got it right out of the Notre Dame training book. It is not necessary to take protein supplements if you eat a balanced vegetarian diet. If you're starving your child, for Pete's sake, it's not going to get muscles. But if you feed them all they want, they're going to have plenty of protein. So high protein, low carb diets do not work. Do not work. You're starving yourself. You'll start eating like a hound dog after about 3 weeks. And you lose a little bit of weight because each pound of glycogen, which you have in your body, you have about 3 pounds of glycogen. That's the reserve energy. I'm playing in a tennis tournament saying I have 3 pounds of glycogen there, never played 2 or 3 matches. I'm going to burn those off and lose probably almost 10 pounds. I get in the scale the next day and say, my God, I lost 10 pounds. Awful funny, 3 days later, I only lost a pound. It was water. Each pound of glycogen's got about 3 pounds of water with it. So don't fool yourself. If you have a wedding to go next week, follow a low-carb diet. You'll lose weight, but you'll be way more than that a month later. Remember how important I said fiber is. Fiber, if your cholesterol level doesn't come down, eat a lot of fiber. It keeps you from absorbing all those calories. Omega-3s are very important, and we're going to discuss omega-3s in a little more detail. You hear a lot about it, fish oil. I think it's best taken as flaxseed. It's the safest. A lot of fish oils today is farm-fed fish, and you don't know how safe that stuff is. They've been fed with things that you necessarily don't want. And then the salmon might look pink, but it's an artificial dye. It's an artificial dye. It's not the same salmon that you get out of Alaska, the kind of salmon you should be eating. So omega-3s decrease production of prostaglandins. Prostaglandins are nasty stuff that cause inflammation, insulin resistance, vascular disease, strokes, heart attacks. So it decreases the production of the prostaglandins. And omega-3 is an essential fatty acid. There are a few fats that are essential, but there isn't many of them. It's very few. This is the essential fatty acid. It builds the cells of your body. It has something to do with hormones. And so omega-3 relaxes blood vessels. So it's, I think, very important to take some. And decreases clotting, so you're less likely to get a heart attack. Increases the HDL. The HDL is a high-density lipoprotein. That's the good cholesterol. You want it high. A woman, the level should be around 50, a man around 40. So a high HDL is very good, and omega-3 will raise it. And it decreases the LDL, the low-density cholesterol, the nasty guy. You want your LDL to be under 80 if you have no heart disease, under 70 if you do have heart disease. Some doctors accept 100, 110. Don't do it. Get it down to those figures. You're not going to get vascular disease or stroke and live a long life. Also decreases cardiac arrhythmia, irregular heart rates are reduced by omega-3. Decreases syndrome X. Remember I said that nasty syndrome that 40 million Americans got and many of them don't know it. The hypertension, the high triglycerides, the insulin resistance where insulin doesn't work properly, doesn't drive the sugars into your cells properly, and diabetes. So syndrome X is a nasty one. Ask your doctor if you got it. A decrease of triglycerides in your blood, a very important thing. Just to throw out a couple of little scientific terms, you don't need to know them. Linoleic acid, that's omega-3, omega-6. We should have those in a certain ratio. Omega-6 is not the good stuff. Omega-3 is the good stuff, but we need a little bit of omega-6. Arachidonic acid is the nasty stuff, prostaglandin that causes inflammation, heart disease, strokes, diabetes, and insulin resistance. What do I recommend? I recommend complex carbs. We talked about that, whole grain, omega-3. Remember, if you take omega-3, probably your basic metabolic rate will go up, and you'll burn an extra 400 calories a day by doing nothing. I mean, this is great. Incidentally, I meant to mention also that protein, every pound of muscle that you can add to your body burns about 50 calories a day without you doing anything. 50 calories a day per pound of muscles. So this is an important thing. You gain 5 pounds of muscle, you're going to burn 250 calories a day doing nothing. That's even without exercise instinct. So fat and protein do not turn your appetite off. they end in failure. Carbohydrates turn the appetite off. We're going to talk about that a little bit. What are appetite suppressants? The satiety, that you're full, reduce the appetite. A full stomach, I mean, we know about that one. Also, remember I said the gallbladder hormone, CCK, will go to the carb center, turn the appetite off. So to eat a nut bar or something, a banana or something an hour before dinner, going to turn your appetite down. This is a good one. Exercise before dinner, it works great. There are also hormones in the small intestines. Once the food works its way down there, that'll turn the appetite down. So eat slowly. Chew your food slowly. If you eat slowly, some food makes itself to the small bowel, it'll turn your appetite off. Reduce sodium. If you use a lot of salt, it turns the appetite on. I don't use salt at all. I don't miss it one bit. Reduce the stress cortisol. So stress reduction techniques, you can get those off my website, cashmanmindbody.com. Rudy and Kelly's 20 prescriptions for stress reduction. Read those for stress reduction. Chew food slowly. I don't do that. I'm always in a hurry. But this is a very good habit. Eat slowly. Talk a little bit. Very important. Reducing the appetite further. Eat a low-calorie nut bar. We talked about that. Drink water. I don't drink enough water, but you ought to be drinking 8-10 glasses of water a day. That's a great thing to do. Keep the insulin level low, so avoid simple sugars, sodium, refined flour. Don't eat candy bars, donuts, and pretzels. Exercise before eating. Why does exercise work? It's causes secretion of endorphins in your blood, your own neuropeptides that make you feel good, and to turn your appetite down. So exercise before dinner is important. A lot of times I play a long tennis match. I notice afterwards, Jesus, I played all day. I don't feel like eating anything. So obviously it works. Knowledge and commitment. You got to know what you're doing. So watch this tape a few times before you get the idea. Fat and protein fail the satiety test, and I'll show you why. I was the guest speaker at the State Chiropractic Association meeting. They took me to Eddie Mallows, and they're all eating these huge steaks. And then of all things, I couldn't believe it. They ate just double steaks. I ate some salmon. They brought out carrot cakes the size of a football for each person. I couldn't believe it. And those people ate it. I couldn't believe it. They ate half up, cut it in half, they took the half and then ate in the hotel. Why was that? Because the protein and fat had not turned their appetite off. It took the carrot cake to do it. Very interesting. That is why low-carb diets result in failure. Starvation doesn't work. Don't starve yourself. I want you to eat. Did I say count calories? Did I say count portion control? Heck, not. The natural foods, if you eat the way I do, the nutrients, actually the high nutrient diet, those chemicals will turn your appetite off. If you eat a high nutrient diet for 3 weeks, your abdomen, your guts will chemically send hormones up to the brain and turn your appetite off. Very important thing to know. Psychology of eating. Inflexible palate syndrome. I see this all the time. And what this really amounts to is, I see a patient who's dying from heart disease, had a stroke, has a bad backache because he's overweight, has a family of 6 kids and a wife, and I'm telling him he's got to lose some weight if he wants to live, and he says, it's impossible. It's impossible. I can't do it. I can't give up meat. I can't give up cheese. That's the inflexible palate syndrome. But I point out to you, you're dead. You're not going to have any effects from this, but your poor family of 6 children won't have enough money, won't have a place to live, and won't have their loved ones, and you have to consider other people. You have to think of other people, not just yourself. It's not like the motorcycle guy that I see every weekend kills himself on a motorcycle. He's dead, but his family agrees forever. And so it is with eating. The inflexible palate syndrome, I don't accept it. You don't tell me that you cannot change. You can indeed change. And it takes about 3-4 weeks, and it's like withdrawing from cigarettes, or maybe a little easier actually. You can indeed change. And part of this is food causes basic chemical changes in our body. Serotonin, dopamine, and endorphins are the chemicals that we receive from eating. And they affect the way we eat. I'm stressed out from neurosurgery. I'm running across town to play tennis. And years ago, we used to stop at McDonald's, get some French fries and a cup of coffee on the way over there. And man, I feel better because it secreted serotonin, dopamine, and endorphins. I felt better. But then, because of the trans fats and the quick reaction of the sugar in the blood, then it dives down. It's lower than ever while I'm playing tennis. I'm losing because I'm dizzy and mentally upset and can't really play well because I was chemically feeding my brain. Overeating, frankly, is a chemical problem. We lead our psychology with our mind. And diet means a way of life. It's a way of life. That's what it is. Here's a good sign to put in your refrigerator. I was giving a lecture, and the little lady stood up, and these are the most beautiful words. She said, if this is all people do, and I told them I probably didn't need my lecture. If hunger is not what you have, food is not the answer. Put that sign in the refrigerator. I come home from a stressed out day at work and surgeries and patients and writing books and doing this and doing that, and I feel like I have a license to eat the refrigerator. But it's not hunger what I have. It's stress is what I have. I'd be a lot better off getting a hot tub and take a nice hot tub or take a short walk or eat a banana or eat an apple. You got to have something ready at those times, but it has to be something healthy. I mean, let's face it, at times like that, we could eat the whole icebox. I'm sure all of us have experienced that. I have experienced that. And don't relieve stress with food. This is a common one. I know between surgeries, there's always something in the doctor's lounge. I'm always ready to grab some silly thing. And I finally gotten over that habit. It's a habit. It's not easy to break. And all of us the same way. We have a stressful situation. We head for the icebox. We go for some ice cream. And some people, it continues all night. Like some people smoke cigarettes all night. Some people eat ice cream and donuts all night. So how do you increase your hunger? Odor of food can increase appetite. An empty stomach clearly does it. But how many of us know true hunger? Not many of us do. Try to figure it out sometime. What does that really feel like? Increased hunger with eating saturated fats and trans fats. Starvation diet will do it. So if you're in calorie restriction, and some of these diets work fine, where you have to count the calories and you're substituting this and something that, but other people are starving. And starvation diets don't work. I know at a hospital, $6,000 that you got to pay to drink this liquid. I mean, do you think 2 years from now these people are going to be drinking this liquid? Give me a break. They're not going to do it. They need to change their lifestyle of eating. And this is what I'm doing here. I never said you shouldn't eat. Increased hunger, obesity, and lipase. If you're starving, the lipase goes up and your appetite goes up. Again, recommended 4 groups. We went again and again. Complex carbs, vegetables, legumes, fruit. The fat you eat today walks around with you tomorrow. The fat will be in your genes tomorrow, and it's not due to your inherited genes, okay? There are, incidentally, in obesity, there are inherited genes. They're based on evolution, and they're only manifested, though, by food. It's very common in African American and Mexican population. They have this gene because those are the people that in evolutionary times are the ones who survived. So they have been selected, and they have a gene that's manifested by bad food. If they eat the right diet, it's not manifested. And that's the reason the Pima Indians have 90% diabetic rate. They have that gene. It's called a thrifty gene. 100,000 years ago, our body saved us that gene because we'd eat an animal and not eat again for a month. So you see, these have been evolutionary-wise selected in these patients in the population. And these groups need to be much more careful, watch what they eat. That's the reason I think we see a high rate of diabetes, hypertension in the African-American community. I know I work there. They're my wonderful patients. And I constantly try to remind them about eating. In Kenya in 1950, they had no heart attack patient to show to a med student. Why? They were eating vegetarian diet. So what I recommend, if you have heart disease, remember, know your figures. If you have heart disease and diabetes, eat 20% or less fat diet. We Americans eat 40. But if you've had heart attacks and you want to avoid a stroke and you want to live a long life, 20% or less. Eat a lot of fiber, a lot of water. Eat a 80% complex carbohydrate diet. Eat a high nutrient-dense diet. That's Joe Furman talking, and I'm going to go to his camp in June to learn more about it. But high nutrient-dense diet is a wonderful thing. Carbohydrates are what turn your appetite off. It's not fat or protein, although small amounts of fat can affect the effect, reduce the appetite, like walnuts. Eat a few walnuts, not a handful, not a fat in walnuts, but a few, like 6. It would be very healthy. It might turn your appetite off. And so complex carbs reduce the appetite. How do they do it? The reason they do it when you eat a complex carb, it enters your bloodstream and pushes the amino acids into the muscles. But tryptophan, being a small amino acid, stays there. It crosses the blood-brain barrier, it goes to the brain, and that's the precursor to serotonin. Serotonin is secreted, you feel good, and your appetite gets turned off. That's how chemically, actually, why this works. Carbs turn the appetite off, like oxygen to the breath, like water to thirst. You need them for energy. Rules for success: unlimited fruit. Avoid all refined sugars and salt. Eat potatoes frequently. Eat 2 baked potatoes. You're not going to gain weight. I mean it. I mean it. Even a diabetic could do that. But watch the sugars. Watch your sugars. Avoid all refined sugars and salt. Eat potatoes of any type frequently. Eat legumes of any type frequently. But if you're diabetic, you got to check your sugars and see how this works for you. But eat the potato with the skin so you get the fiber. Unlimited green and yellow vegetables. Unlimited squash, zucchinis, pumpkins. Whole grain and whole grain cereals such as brown rice, corn, oatmeal, barley, millet, and wheat. But remember, know your figures. Which of these four ways of eating I recommend are based on your age, your family history. If everybody's having a stroke or heart attack at age 20 or 30, for Pete's sake, you got to be a vegan. You got to be a vegan and take the omega-3 if you want to live. You're going to grab your chest at age 40 and die like the rest of them did. About 10% of people have run a high cholesterol level. And remember, heart disease, vascular disease starts when? Age 4. Check your teenagers. Your teenagers get a pot belly, work on that. They're going to have stroke, heart attack at a young age. Food to avoid: meat and cheese. All oils. Olive oil is not a health food. Not a health food. A tablespoonful is fine, but you eat a lot of it, it's full of fat. The Mediterranean diet, those people get away with it because they exercise a lot and they eat a lot of fruit. They get away with it. You'll not get away with it. And all oil is 100% liquid fat. If you need to use an oil for cooking, use canola oil, much safer. Avoid all dairy products, including milk, yogurt, cheese. Milk, regular milk, 50% fat. 2% milk, 35% fat. No primate drinks the milk of another primate. Why do we need to drink cow's milk? Children should not be drinking milk cow's milk after age 2. Mother's milk is the safest at all. The best thing you do for a child, breastfeed them till age 2. Absolutely the best gift you can give your child. I will talk about that more in another DVD. Avoid refined carbohydrates, food without the micronutrients. Foods to avoid, we talked about that: red meat, including beef, pork, and lamb. Certainly, remember said, ferments, nutritarian diet. If it's very, has a fat off it, and you eat some white turkey, a little bit of chicken, a little bit of fish, you can probably get away with that. If the rest of the time, 90% of the time you're on target. Chicken and fish, very fatty. Even Furman says that fish is not a health food, contrary to what you hear all the time, because of contaminants. It's the farm-fed fish is not that healthy. So it's got to be fish that you're getting from Alaska. And if you can't be a vegetarian, eat one. I'm talking about eating, frankly, oysters, the vegetables of the sea. And micronutrients, remember we talked about micronutrients, they have no calories. Those are the phytochemicals. We all take, some people take supplements, they're selling supplements. Besides omega-3 and a vitamin, I would necessarily bother that much with that, because these phytochemicals, which you have 10 to 20,000, they interact with each other. And when they interact with each other, that's not the same as taking them individually. Important point. And other micronutrients that you need are minerals, zinc, and magnesium, but they are in vegetables. You don't need to take supplements. Vitamins, except for vitamin B12. If you're a pure vegetarian, you eat no meat whatsoever, you probably ought to take a vitamin B12 supplement. Personally, I doubt it's necessary, because there's plenty of mosquitoes and things on vegetables. The time you finish eating those, and you won't see the remnants of them, you'll get plenty of B12. But take a supplement just to satisfy the teachers. But all these have 0 calories. Micronutrients have 0 calories. So eat a high nutrient diet. You can see how healthy that is. Eat a high nutrient dense diet. And supplements, multivitamins, we talked about B12, omega-3, you'll have, and minerals. You want to take a supplement, but you can frankly get that out of the vegetables. Nuts and seeds, Furman recommends those highly, but don't eat so much, that's so fatty. But to eat a few nuts every day to turn off the appetite, and has some healthy fats, omega-3 in it, I think that's just fine. I don't know why I threw the mushrooms in there, but you can eat all the mushrooms in the world, they're healthy. And foods to avoid, we talk avocados, olives, coconuts, are very high in fat. Yeah, very high in fat. A small amount of nuts can be added when approaching a normal weight. Now, if you get a normal weight and your figures are good, you can cheat on these things a little bit, but you got to know your figures. You don't know your figures, you're kidding yourself. You're kidding yourself. Avoid dry fruit. Why is that? Because that's concentrated sugar. You might eat one apricot and you're full. But once you start eating the dried apricot, you'll eat 6. Well, it's like eating 6 whole apricots. You've got a lot of sugar in you. So dried fruits are not a good idea. Foods to avoid: refined flour products, in lieu of light bread, bagels, pretzels. Whole grain breads can be added. Eat till you're full. That's my point, is eat till you're full in that stuff, and don't eat to satisfy your psychology. If food is not what you need, don't eat food. That way you won't need to watch your portions. I don't think you need to watch your portions. I eat a huge baked potato when I go to a restaurant, huge, and a salad, and generally I'm full. Keep your LDL under 40 if you don't want a heart attack. Your LDL less than 70. I mean over 40, and your LDL under 70. If you have no heart disease, it could be 80, but with heart disease, keep it under 70. And follow a vegan diet if you have a whole bunch of heart disease. Asseltine has a book out. He took 50 of the most serious heart disease patients that cardiologists gave up on. He all put them on the vegan diet. Get them involved with exercise and a little teaching of relaxation and spirituality. Remember, I said relaxation, spirituality, very important part of healing. And 15 years later, these 42 people were alive and had no angina. Does that tell you something? Does that tell you something? We need to be pushy about the diet in heart disease. It isn't just angioplasty and a heart operation. The major thing should be the diet. In summary, the basic diet is whole grain, complex carbs, vegetables, legumes, fruit. I think we've driven that point home. Eat as much fruit as you want. Use green salads as a main dish. Start your child on that. They get used to it. They get used to it. You're the boss. You're the boss. The woman is the boss 80% of the time. You got to take charge. You got to take charge. Eat beans and legumes every day. And don't tell your kids you're changing the diet to a vegetarian diet. Just change it. They won't notice it after a while. Just change it. You're the boss. Don't eat any animal or dairy, anything that has a mother or a face. Foods to eat. We talked about the vitamin and the flaxseed daily. Flaxseed is the omega-3. I think it's better to take it as a seed. Eat mushrooms anytime. Consume nuts and seeds in limited amounts. 90% of your diet should be unrefined plant food. When eating food, chew foods thoroughly. Remember, we talked about eat slow, eat slow. I don't do that. That's a great thing. And so eat well till you're satisfied. A stomach full of well-prepared, high-carbohydrate, low-fat foods effectively curbs your tendency to cheat yourself out of great health and great looks. You want to look great, you want to feel great, you want to live to be 100, not have a stroke, have a heart attack. You follow these recommendations. That's what's going to happen to you. Be committed, set a goal, write your goal down, draw a picture of your goal. Visualization is most likely developed to what you do. Visualize yourself 6 months down the line. I lost 20 pounds. This is what I want to look like. This is what I want to achieve. Write it down and see it in your mind's eye. Sit there, meditate for a minute. Breathe deeply, close your eyes, and visualize what you want to look at 6 months from now. I bet you it happens. Be committed. Visualize your goal. Visualization is a language to the unconscious mind. Your unconscious mind will likely make you do it. Know your blood work and keep a copy in your wallet or purse, or put it inside door of your closet. Know your figures. Know the family's figures. You want to live a long life? That's what you got to do. Otherwise, you'll grab your chest at age 50, have a heart attack, and say, gee, I wish I'd followed Dr. Cashman's recommendation. Okay? And why am I so pushy about this? Because I love you. That's why. I want people to get well. And so be committed. Set a goal. Write your goal down. We talked about that. And if diabetic, watch your blood sugars till you come down. Most diabetics can get rid of their diabetes. 90% diabetes is due to diet. 90%. If 80% of those people get rid of their disease in 6 months, don't you think you ought to do it? You want your legs amputated? You want to go blind? You want to go into dialysis? You want to die young? This is what you got to do. You just got to do it. And it can be done. I've had my diet class at Lutherans, $50 for 8 lectures. And I've had 7 patients get rid of their diabetes. My God, I will admit, it makes me feel good. And so it does work. And become educated regarding proper nutrition and admit your willingness to pay the price, which will probably be less than you think. Healthy eating will make you feel good and you will be happier about yourself. If you're obese, remember you are only seeing the external aspect of your problem. That's a big point. You may be overweight, and you may even think being overweight is beautiful. I see plenty of women that are overweight that look beautiful. But I tell you, they don't look beautiful inside. Not their mind. I'm talking about their body. They're painting the arteries with vascular disease and diabetes and cancer. Breast cancer, 20% of breast cancer is due to stress. 20% of breast cancer is due to diet. You would think these organizations dealing in that would point that out. Instead, they send their research money over to Indianapolis, every darn dime of it, instead of teaching the diet and stress reduction, and we'd have a 40% less breast cancer around here. I think that's a big point. And remember, you're seeing the only external aspect of it. What's going on in your body is something else. Motivators, develop a support system, your family, very important. Get family members involved. Invariably, I talk to people. I try to get one family member to work with them on this. And otherwise, if they're both, it's like two smokers. They're going to talk each other out of stopping smoking, the same as with overeating. And you need support. And remember, this is not a complex diet. Do not count calories. Health is everything in life. You can't put a price on it. Be honest and realistic with yourself on what you're eating. Weigh yourself every day. I do that every day because I can get off 5-10 pounds and no trouble at all after going to a convention or the Christmas holidays. Weigh yourself every day. Eliminate animal foods. Oil is pure liquid fat. 9 calories in fat. It's only 4 calories in a complex carb per gram. Okay? The Mediterranean diet is better than the American diet, but still not as good as the Asian diet because oil is so fatty. Eliminate bread, bagels, and pastas. Increase your whole grain intake. Make a green, yellow vegetable 50% of your meal at least. I think we've driven these points home pretty good. Use simple sugars sparingly. You can become addicted to sugar. I have a next a DVD coming up. I'm going to be speaking about psychology of eating, which is very important. It's like nicotine, like alcohol eating, because food is a drug. I have trouble with it myself. Eat a big breakfast, oatmeal, fruits. No food after 7 p.m., that's a big one. At least have a snack available of healthy food if you're going to do that. Remember, it raises the thermic effect of dieting. You'll burn up a lot of calories during the night if you don't eat after 7. Exercise is at least 30% of weight loss, at least, because the basic metabolic rate chews up a lot of your calories. Very important. Also makes you feel better. The endorphins secreted from exercise make you feel better. I must say I'm an exercise nut. I mean, I work full day in neurosurgery, write books, do this and the other, but I play tennis at least 4 days a week and do some yoga with some mild weightlifting in the morning. And it doesn't have to be a long period of time. If you just want to do one thing, walk 30 minutes a day. Just do one thing, walk 30 minutes a day. That alone would increase your metabolic rate and make you feel a lot better. Very healthy. Frankly, you almost don't need to do anything else. That alone will keep you very healthy. Do a little mild weightlifting, though, 5-10 pound weights, a little bit. It builds your muscles up a little bit. Remember, each pound of muscle burns 50 calories a day. That's a big one. At the first twinge of hunger, if you have time, take a walk or a jog. That's a good one. Exercise stimulates the release of endorphins, your own morphine. We talked about that. And exercise decreases depression and increases positive attitude because of endorphins being secreted. Your own neuropeptides. Exercise keeps your blood vessels open, reduces your blood pressure, reduces obesity. So walk 30 minutes a day, 5 minutes in mild weightlifting daily. Do a little stretching too, a little flexibility. As we get older, we get stiffer, so I do a bunch of that and recommend that too. And maybe something aerobic 3 times a week. I mean, faster walking, a little bit of jogging. That's not critical. If you give me those 30 minutes, I'm happy. But if you could do a little aerobic activity, playing tennis or running a few blocks, walking fast a few blocks, I think that's plenty. So brain chemicals and emotions control your eating habits. How you feel has a great effect on your eating habits every day. And we talked about the chemicals, psychology of eating. We talked about the interaction of these chemicals. And what else is good for relaxation and stress? Meditation, breathing techniques, exercise, yoga. I own a yoga studio because of that. I think it's very important. To motivate yourself, look at yourself, take your clothes off, look in the mirror, and say, this is what I want to look at like 6 months from now, and visualize it. Write it down, weigh yourself, and make it gold. And you will achieve it. And you will achieve it. Keep your cholesterol, remember we said, under 150. Don't accept 180 to 220. If you want to live, keep it under 150. That should be your gold. and have changes in medication made if you're diabetic as your blood sugar drops down. You're going to need to change them. They may be needed as you begin to lose weight. You want to get rid of your diabetes? Follow this diet. I guarantee it. And it'll work 80% of the time. And if you follow Rudy and Kelly's plan, weight reduction, reduction of your blood pressure, decreased change in your adult diabetes, less incidence of cancer, can reverse the effects of heart disease, look and feel better, improve your personal lifestyle, and live to be 100. Good luck. You can do it, and I believe in you. People can change. Healthcare providers must be a good placebo educator and motivator. Incidentally, the word doctor means teacher. A doctor should be a teacher and a motivator. And this is what I'm trying to do. And I have a book coming out. Remember I said on the secret of the non-diet. This will be out shortly. If you want to read another book I wrote, The Effects of the Mind on the Body, Welcome to Your Mind Body. I have a DVD in this also. It tells you how the brain affects the rest of your body, how to avoid unnecessary medical care, excessive medication. I see too many people who are on 15 drugs today, and I frankly don't like it. It's very dangerous. So watch how much medication that you're taking. And I formed the Mind-Body Index, lastly, which is there to tell you what diseases are caused partially or totally by the mind, the chemistry of your mind. I have another DVD on that, and you might like to watch that. It'll save you tons of medical care because by stress reduction, you can help these conditions instead of taking a whole bunch of narcotics, medications, injections, and procedures. And thank you very much for listening to my little talk. And I hope your plan is to feel good, look good, and live to be 100, and have a very happy, loving family. Thank you for listening.